Hey guys, it's Shane here from Tank Hunter Miniatures, and today's video, I want to go over a fun list I've been playing around with for 10th edition 40k. So with the new way armies are created, it's much more loose, and because of this, it's possible to bring a tanks-only army for Space Marines. Now stick around because I'm going to tell you the best way to make this happen, and go over which tanks are really good for 10th edition, what I feel's really good rules-wise. Now for 10th edition armies, the only real requirement for building a list is having a character that can be the Warlord. And for Space Marines, you have Sergeant Cronus, which will then attach to a tank and will be the Warlord for your Space Marine army. So in that case, you can have, whatever tanks you really need. But for the best choice, I'd say a Land Raider, a Predator Annihilator, or a Whirlwind. So with Cronus giving the tank a 2-up ballistic skill really helps when you have one-shot weapons like las cannons. So having him in the Land Raider or the Predator Annihilator is a huge buff for the tank, as well as the free reroll to wound, to make sure you're really getting value for what you've paid for. The Whirlwind is also a good choice, seeing as you can keep him in the backfield, keep him safe from there, and of course, you'll be hitting with indirect, so you'll be having that penalty to hit anyway, so the extra ballistic skill can really help make sure you get a lot of targets for the Whirlwind. The other options for tanks to command either have enough shots that the BS2 doesn't really help that much, or they already have abilities that supersede what Cronus can buff, so it's not really as useful. Now when building this army, there's a couple of really good choices you can't afford to miss out on, starting with the Land Speeders. Now at 80 points you can afford to take at least 2, even 3 of these. They only have one weapon, but that doesn't matter. Their job is to fly around, get a really good position to see the enemy, and give the target sighted rule against it. This basically allows the whole army to get the towers for the greater good ability against those targets. So if you're taking at least one Whirlwind, which is definitely advised, take at least one Whirlwind, this is an extremely strong combo for taking out almost anything on the board from anywhere. Another really great artillery tank choice is the Hunter tank. It's only 100 points and can take out most big targets, especially with the fly keyword, really well without needing any support from other units. I'd say take 1, maybe 2 if you have the points, as it won't be effective against all kinds of infantry units. In contrast though, I would avoid using the Stalker in most cases, as it does do a pretty good job at shooting down flying and jetpack infantry that's very situational and won't really be needed against most armies. So the Whirlwind is going to do a lot better job targeting those same types of units, and it's going to be cheaper. Vindicators are amazing in 10th. These guys can take out everything extremely well, with the Siege Shield ability allowing it to shoot into combat with no penalties and its high toughness, 2-up save, you can push in straight up the middle, let nothing stop them. 205 points is one of the more expensive tanks, but it's a must-have in an all-tank army. So take 3 of these, they are well worth the cost. Now for your medium-sized tanks, there really isn't too many bad choices, so it's good to have a variety so you're able to have an answer for what's brought against you. The Predator Destructor is a great choice for taking out heavy infantry like Space Marines. The Annihilator is really reliable at just being anti-vehicle, anti-monster. Now the Gladiator Lancer does the same job as the Annihilator, but just slightly more points cost, with less shots, but more range and more damage, so it comes down to which style you enjoy more. The Gladiator Reaper is a great choice for taking on massed light infantry, such as Guard or Tau. The Gladiator Valiant is a bad choice, as it does the same job as the Annihilator and the Lancer, but it does it worse, as it needs to be much closer to the target to be effective. And unlike a Vindicator, which also needs to be close, it has no extra armor or toughness to keep it protected. Yet don't bring a Valiant, ever, for any list. For all these other tanks mentioned, just take 1 anti-armor, take at least 1 anti-infantry, and the rest is just personal choice. As for the other skimmy units, aside from the must include basic Land Speeder, the Tornado and the Typhoon variants are not great value. The damage output is okay, but points for points, you're much better off with more medium tank investment so you have more damage and durability over the speed and maneuverability. Now having faster units is a good thing, but when you take into account you'll be able to use the Devastator Doctrine and allow all units to have an additional D6 movement at any point of the game for no penalty, the whole army should be fast enough for the most part. Now, the Storm Speeders have some more useful abilities to keep in mind. The Hellstrike is the cheapest unit, and its main job is to be anti-light infantry, but it also has the most effective ability in the Hellstrike rule. I'd target something pretty heavily armored, and with its weaker weapon like the Stubber. Now, it's down 1 point of armor save. That can be huge. Now, the Thunderstrike is a little overcosted. Though the weapons are accurate, have high strength and damage, it's low shots, so you have a higher damage output from a medium class tank in most cases. The Thunderstrike ability isn't bad with the +1 to wound against a monster or vehicle, but with most other units having the ability to reroll wounds of some kind, and if it's a really high target, you already have Oath the moment you can pop on it, so I'd say the Thunderstrike is not really needed here. Now, the Hammerstrike is completely irrelevant. The Melter Destroyer is just a more powerful multi-melter, but seeing as you still need to be within 9 inches for it to be effective, the long-range guns are going to be able to deal out so much more damage on average. And its ability to remove cover from a unit, it's not really needed as you already have the Land Speeders, or in a pinch you can use the Storm of Fire strap to ignore cover. So if you aren't bringing much else in the anti-infantry, I'd definitely suggest fit in one Hailstrike. And like I said, it can be really good for just weakening down a really tough enemy. Now looking at the heavy tanks, let's start with the Repulsor. At just shy of 200 points, it can be able to fit in most lists pretty well. The defensive array makes it really good against light armored targets, and it can choose its other weapons to be anti-armor or anti-infantry, so it's a good all-around choice. It's got a 3-up save, but the toughness 12 and 16 wounds make it pretty decent to withstand most damage. The Executioner variant, you're only paying 35 more for, and it's basically just got an extra big gun that can be anti-tank and monster, or that's anti-heavy infantry. If you already have these roles filled, it might be a bit overkill, but overall it's still really good value. Now, Land Raiders, of course, are the most expensive choice here, but with the toughness 12, 2-up save, and seeing as you can use the Armor of Contempt strategy, Land Raiders are really hard to put down. The base Land Raider would be seen as the least effective, though, on its own, the main damage coming from the 4 las cannons. And as I suggested, if you're going to take the Land Raider, this is what you put Cronus in to buff it, as it really makes it more efficient. Crusader, of course, is the cheapest option, but really needs to be targeting infantry to be the most effective, so it's situational if you think you'll need one or not. And the Redeemer is the most expensive, but like the Vindicator, is perfect at being on the front line to absorb incoming firepower, and even if it's tied up in combat, the Flamestalk cannons are going to be able to deal a huge amount of damage in the shooting phase with no penalty to hit, and not to mention the potential damage from being overwatched. It's expensive, but it's really going to be a bad choice. So with all this in mind, what is a good list to bring when fielding your Space Marine armored spearhead of tanks only? Well, for me, being the Land Raider lover that I am, this is a list I've been trying out of late. So your opponent having to take on 3 Land Raiders is a daunting task on its own, and with the Vindicators being the main damage dealers is devastating to any unit your opponent can bring. I will need more time to play around with this list and do more testing, but I found it to be really effective in the matches we've played so far. But let me know what you think in the comments. If there's a list you want me to try out, I would love to test it for you. And just let me know how you've been going with 10th edition. I'm going to work out some more lists for other factions. There are more than a few now that can bring old tanks, so that's going to be fun to play around with. So until then, I'll talk to you soon.